was looking for this specifically on my YouTube channel. I couldn't find it, so I'm just going to make a quick video so I know where it is. So we're going to talk about depth masking. So I'm going to grab a cylinder out of my tool area, drag it on my canvas, go into edit mode, make it a polymesh 3D, and now we have a cylinder in our scene. I'm going to change the material out to Skin Shader 4 so we can see it a little bit better. Now, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create edges that we can use our masking brush on. If we're just going to use like box modeling techniques, we can do BZM to grab our Z modeler brush and then hover over a face. We can say inset flat island and then just go ahead and then, do an inset here and then hover over this polygroup face, hold down the spacebar, do Q mesh, polygroup all, and pull this inwards. So now if we wanted to, mask this edge right here, mask this edge down here, we can hit W to go into our transpose mode, hold down Control, which is the modifier for going into masking, and then just tap this. And now you have just that polygroup masked, or it should be. There we go. So now you have just this polygroup mask, the pink one. You could also, use your Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, and then switch this to like mask polyloop, and then you can mask this polyloop area in here too, and then now you just have that mask. If you want to invert that mask, hold down Control and tap, and now you've inverted the mask, so now just that polyloop is unmasked and you can move it. However, say we don't have polygroups and we're just kind of modeling on this. So for example, I'm going to go in here to geometry, go in here to crease, say hit the crease button so we crease all of these edges here, and then we're going to hit this divide button a couple times just to give us a nice smooth result. I'm going to go ahead and go down here to dynamesh, and we're going to turn blur down to 0 and just hit this dynamesh button, say no, we don't want to freeze our subdivision levels, and now we have a dynamesh. We do still have polygroups here, so if I wanted to, I could hit W and then Control tap this and isolate just this polygroup here. However, let's hit Control W and make it so that it's all one polygroup here. So let's say we were in dynamesh mode and we were doing things like, and go into my standard brush and then switch this out. Go into the alpha here and then grab maybe alpha 14, change this to drag rect, crank our Z intensity up, and we're literally just kind of, change our focal shift down to -100, and now we're just kind of punching out shapes, or if we hold down Alt, we can punch in shapes and then Control drag to redynamesh. So we have edges available to us on this mesh, but we don't have polygroups to kind of grab these flat surfaces. Now, of course, you can go to the side if your object is, set up this way and just kind of grab, Control drag, mask rectangle these. However, you may have a more complex shape. For example, I hold down Control Shift and go in here to clip curve, where we're just going to Alt tap twice so we can kind of slice this off, and then Control drag to redynamesh. So, grabbing all these edges may be a little bit more difficult, even if you do have access to like mask curve, and you can go in here and like hold down Control and double tap and try and grab a mask of just these edges. That may or may not be successful depending on what you're trying to do. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to polyframe, we're going to turn off line, and I'm going to hold down Control, and we're going to switch this to mask pin. You're going to see over here I have my brush docked over here to the left. We're going to double click this arrow so you can see that this is where we open that little docking station, and then if it's not in here, you can grab a brush menu or any menu, grab that little white dot and just drag it on over here to the left. Now what we're going to open up is this depth menu right here, and this is what's going to control where this mask brush ends up masking. So again, if we hold down Control, you're going to see we just have mask pin selected. And then if I go through here and I hold down Control and just start masking, you're going to see as I get toward that edge, it's just going to kind of go over the edge, which is fine. That's good functionality for just doing general masking. And I go down here, it's going to kind of go across that edge, no problem. If you want to limit that behavior, make sure you're holding down Control while you're doing this, because that's going to put you in that mask pin mode, and switch your brush over to mask pin. So hold down Control, have your depth menu open, go in here to depth mask, and just take this top one and drag it down. Now don't drag it down all the way to 0, drag it down to a very small number. You're gonna see this is like 0.05405 or something like that. Same thing for this bottom one, just drag this up, not all the way to 0, but just to a very small number. And then now when you hold down Control, you're gonna see your depth mask has changed. And now what you can do is as you're masking, it will stop when it reaches a border here. You're gonna see I'm kind of being lazy with how my stroke is going, and it's actually stopping at this border. Same thing on the inside. If I start masking here, it's going to automatically stop right when it sees that bottom edge. And if I go over here to the bottom, it'll stop masking when it sees that edge over there. So you can see very quickly, I can limit myself, I can Control drag to unmask. I can limit myself to just areas. So I can go through here and I can mask just this inside, and it'll stop at those borders, or I can mask the bottom part and it'll stop that mask border. Now for these edges up here where you can see the camera kind of stop showing those faces, you can also hold down Control, go in here to auto masking, and turn on backface masking. So while you're using this, and so hold down Shift so we can open up, we have depth open up, and then we have auto masking opened up, and when we hold down Control, you're gonna see backface masking is on and our depth mask is on as well. So now when I hold down Control, I can go through here and I can stop myself at that front edge, and then anything the camera doesn't see, it also won't mask. So I can actually move my camera around and it will actually stop me from painting over here or masking over here, and painting too. So if I go through here, I don't even need depth masking on. If I can just hide those polygons from my view, backface masking will automatically ensure that I do not mask what's away from the camera. You know, so you can kind of use these together, the depth mask and the backface masking, to kind of control where exactly you want to mask. You know, and it may not be perfect. You may have to go in here and, you know, hold down Control Alt and, you know, clean it up a little bit here. Control Alt Tap to sharpen your mask. Control Tap to blur your mask. Those are the, if you go over here underneath the masking options, that's where you have blur mask. You can invert your mask, all this stuff. Of course, you can do that with hot, you know, just on the screen here. So again, Control Drag or Control Paint to mask. Control Tap to invert your mask. Control Tap on your object to blur. Control Alt Tap to sharpen your mask. And then Control Drag to get rid of your mask. So anyway, that's depth masking combined with backface masking, and kind of control what you're masking with your mask pin brush while you're masking an object that's not necessarily, you know, box modeled or has nice consistent polygroups. One little addendum you might find useful is you can go in here to Tool, Polygroups, and there's a group by normals in here. You can change this max angle. It's by defaulted to about 45, and you have an open and closed circle here. So if you try groups by normals and it doesn't give you everything you want, you can see it kind of, it did this one okay, but this one not so much. You can try taking this group by normal max angle and turning it down a little bit. So the lower you get that, the more edges it'll pick up. You can also turn on the open circle, and on these types of meshes, these dynamesh type meshes, it might give you a little bit better results. So now you can see we have this piece here all kind of laid out here, so we can have this entire flat piece here. And again, we're back to hitting W, Control tapping this purple area, and now we just have this purple area unmasked. So you can use this to your advantage. And if you do want to go through here, you can see we turn the line back on in our polygroups. If you wanted to add or subtract these polygroups, you can also use the ZModeler brush for that. Again, BZM. You can hover over a face, hold down Alt and start painting, and then tap Shift, and that'll inherit that polygroup you were starting to paint with. So again, that's one more time. You can go over here if you want to turn these pink ones green. You can start Alt painting on the green, let go of Alt, tap Shift to inherit that green, and then just paint over these polygons there, and that will add it to the selection. So now again, you can hit W, you can control tap any of these polygroups here, and you'll get those sections all masked out for you. So again, we'll Control tap on this polygroup back here, if it'll let me. There we go. And now we have this entire ring section masked out for us.